when I heard that the Pope was going to be coming to Washington, D.C. for sure, I went to CBS News, and I asked them if they, how do you get a press pass for this event? You're not going to be able to get a press pass for this event. And I said, why? And they said, well, Congress turned over to the Catholic Church the authority to issue the press passes at this event, and unless the Catholic Church has sent you an invitation, you're out of luck. That's a news story in and of itself, that Congress turned over the authority to issue press passes to the Roman Catholic Church. Once it was discovered that I had flown all the way in from the West Coast to apply for this permit, and literally everything that I had tried to do, I was kind of shot down. One of the other individuals that was in the background was listening to the conversation and did her due diligence just to make sure that every location up on Capitol Hill where they normally allow people to come and demonstrate was off limits. And it turned out that there was one spot that was available, that the Congress and the papal delegation that was planning this event hadn't made off limits. And I said, I would like to apply for this spot. And so they said, well, you can apply for it, but we can't guarantee that you're going to get it. And once they discover that one of these areas kind of slipped through the cracks or somebody overlooked, they're probably not going to issue it to you. And they brought over a map to me of the Capitol Hill grounds, and they showed me on the map, they said, it's this area right here, area number 7.
Tell me about where you're located and what you start to see.
Well, they gave us this area number 7, and it's a beautiful garden area on the north side of the Capitol building. And the Capitol Hill complex itself is the United States Capitol building on one side, and it's flanked on either side by offices for the congressmen and for the senators. And they placed us in the area that was right next to the door, literally just feet away from the door, where everybody has to go through when you're coming into the Senate building. Foreign dignitaries, Vatican officials, senators, the limousines and the Escalades and the black Suburbans would pull up with the Secret Service personnel and security, and they would open the doors up and walk them into the building from where we were. And we had our banners set up right there, and I watched a number of these papal delegates that were in their priestly garments would get out of their vehicles, and they would look right over at where we had our banners set up, and it was just pretty amazing that so they were able to identify that, hey, there's a group over here. But yes.
So you are stationed right next to the Senate building.
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing anything interesting going on over at the Senate building while you're right next to it?
It was a sad thing, because as Americans, we believe in a separation of church and state. And we saw, and we were told, because we asked, saying, why do you have these legions of teams of Vatican officials that are going into the Senate building and meeting with Congress and the Senate, and what is it that they're doing for days leading up to this meeting? And so we asked, we said, what's going on? And they're like, well, we're having meetings. And since our proximity, we had this sign, and on the sign we had the pure woman from Revelation chapter 12. We were under this banner, these are those that keep the commandments of Jesus. And so, but this little image that we had on there of the pure woman, it looked like Mary. And one of the things that we figured out was that Catholics and these Catholic priests were being drawn to our demonstration because we really looked like people that were there to support the papal visit. And they would get up to where we were, and they saw we had some tables out, and they would look on the tables and they would see Great Controversy, and they would be like, oh. And I said, well, what are you guys exactly doing in here? What are you doing in there? And they said, well, we're here with the advance team from the Vatican, and we're here to train the U.S. Senate on what specifically the Pope's climate change agenda is about, and educate them as to what we're trying to achieve. And that's when I said to them, I said, you know, I read the Pope's climate change encyclical, and I noticed that the Pope mentions the Sabbath in the encyclical. And he talks about animals having a day of rest, and I'm putting two and two together, and it looks to me like the Pope wants to have a Sabbath rest for the land, a Sabbath rest for the environment. And it seems to me like the Pope wants to have a worldwide Sunday law put in place, and through this green Sabbath, I didn't say green Sabbath, but through this Sabbath rest for the land or for the environment, that the whole world would shut their businesses and factories and everything down one day a week, and thus you'd be able to lower greenhouse emissions. And he looked at me and he goes, that's exactly what this is about. And with that, they just turned on their heels and walked away.
You're seeing the papacy and you're going into the Senate House, and what you're finding out is they are basically laying the groundwork for a Sunday law.
That's correct. But using this as, you know, who wants everything to be polluted, right? Nobody wants pollution. Nobody wants our rivers and streams polluted or anything like that. And so what they're trying to do in the guise of being environmentalists is to say, hey, we need to help rebuild society. We need to heal the land and all this kind of stuff. And the best way we can do it is by having a green Sabbath.
Tell me a little bit about the people's reaction. You were able to kind of pose some questions.
First question is, do you believe that climate change is man-made?
I definitely believe that man has played a significant role in it, yeah.
Now, do you believe that climate change is man-made?
I feel like it could be possible, yeah.
Okay.
I feel like we could play a role in it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you believe that climate change is man-made?
I believe that a great portion of it is man-made and that we have to do something about it.
And one of the concepts would be to have mandatory forced closings on Sunday, so that not only could families spend time together, but that it would actually also lower greenhouse gases. Would you support something like that?
Yeah, I guess I would. Yeah.
You would?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely
I think
would.
it's coming.
Let me ask you a question. Would you support a law that mandated that all factories and businesses and shopping centers and things like that be closed one day a week to reduce greenhouse gases around the world?
I think I would have to know more of the details of it, but that certainly sounds like a good idea to me. I'm in favor of reducing climate change. So,
Would you feel comfortable that it would be that a law would be put in place making it the law of the land that this was mandatory?
Would I feel comfortable? I guess, yeah. If it's gonna help the climate change, then yeah, of course I'd be okay with it.
And would you support it if it was compulsory? In other words, if they mandated that everybody had to do it?
Yes, I would.
Okay. So even if it went against, say, their religious conscience, they would still have to abide by it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I think the environment is more important.
I think that in terms of laws with fines, yeah, I think that some monetary penalty might be useful to enforce that.
So if the Pope pushed for a one day of the week, Sunday, to have a mandatory closure, would you be in support of that?
On a Sunday? Sure, most businesses are closed anyway on a Sunday, so that would be the natural day that you would target if you were going to go down that path.
So if a decision was made to have all the pollution factories and all this kind of stuff shut down one day a week, what day of the week would you choose?
Definitely Sunday, I think. Sunday.
Now, if the thought was put out there that one day a week would be selected to let the land rest or let the environment rest, which is in the Pope's encyclical, what day of the week do you think that would be?
I would hope for Sunday.
If you were going to pick a day when everything would have to be closed to lower greenhouse emissions, what day would it be?
Sunday?
A 1 day a week of rest for the environment, what day do you think would be chosen?
Well, I think the natural choice would probably be Sunday.
So, the papacy delivers the encyclical to our Senate, and so now our government is being briefed on a law that is soon to come, possibly.
And you know, when the Pope comes, he's not trying to force his encyclical in his speech to the Senate or the American people. All that is being made in backroom deals, you know, just like everything else that's done up there.
And the people that you're interviewing, they are very in support of this because they see that this is something that the Pope is championing the environment, and they see this as something wonderful for the environment.
Most of those that have a say support it, and here's why. In Congress, you have two parties. We have basically a two-party system, Republicans and Democrats. And the Democrat Party is supported in a large way by labor unions. And the Republican Party, in a large way, is supported by evangelical Christians. And so here's what you have. Labor unions support a Sunday law because they want the union workers to be able to have more time off. So it's advantageous for union employees to have a Sunday law. Evangelical Christians support a Sunday law because they believe that the nation is going down the tubes because people aren't going to church. Catholics support a Sunday law because it's an idea that initiated with the Pope. And finally, environmentalists that want to see greenhouse gases and the environment healed would support a Sunday law because it would lower greenhouse gases. So you see these four groups here, which are the movers and shakers that are lobbying Congress on all these different things, and they all support a Sunday law.
Tell me now about September 23rd, 2015. The Pope comes to town. Tell me how he came, where he went, where he gave his speech. Tell me what you saw.
Well, what happens is that the Pope comes to Washington, flies in at Andrews Air Force Base, meets with the president at the White House. They have a parade for him. He goes to Congress on the day that he goes to speak there before a joint house of Congress, delivers a speech, and then goes out onto the west front of the United States Capitol building, facing the Washington Monument, which is an obelisk, and addresses the American people. As we were there and kind of realizing what was going on, we were like, wow, we've made like an image to the papacy. Because the U.S. Capitol building architecturally looks like St. Peter's at the Vatican. And even down to the detail is that St. Peter's has an obelisk that is in front of St. Peter's. And the United States Capitol building, which is architecturally similar to St. Peter's, also has an obelisk in the front. When you're at the Vatican and they elect a new pope, the cardinals do their little behind the door, whatever it is, and then at a certain day, the special color smoke comes out of this little pipe. And then the new pope comes out of this balcony, this balcony door, and he addresses the waiting masses in front of the obelisk. This happens every time there's a new pope. After the pope addressed Congress, we had thought that he was going to come out and address the American people at that platform area where the president takes the oath of office, but that's not what happened. There's a balcony that's on the west side of the Capitol building with a door, and the Pope came out of that door, just like at the Vatican, on the balcony there, and he addressed the people from this balcony above where the president normally speaks to the American people. And I've never seen any foreign leader or even a president that I know of address the American people from such an elevated position. And so it was just like, I mean, it was literally just like the choreography as if the Pope was at St. Peter's. I mean, everything was in detail. Like, hey, here's the new leader, so to speak.
Remember the Sabbath to keep it.